Hello and welcome to the Business Spotlight interview series. I'm your host, Barrett McDonald, and I'm happily joined today by Shannon Platt, co-owner of Pelvico. Shannon, thank you so much for joining us today. Would you like to kick things off a little bit about who you are and what got you on this entrepreneurial journey?
Yes, hello everybody. Yes, I'm Shannon. I am one of the co-owners, as Barrett said, and we started Pelvico Health Center 2 years ago, pretty much to the date. What got me on this journey? I mean, it's always kind of a little winding all the way through, but I guess the biggest thing that kind of shifted things for me was when I had my first child almost 5 years ago, my daughter Sloan. I was a fitness trainer on the side in marketing at the time, and going through my pregnancy, kind of just doing whatever fitness I thought was right, but not trying to overdo it. And then I had her and gave birth and went back to playing basketball as I was like a high level athlete for a little while at 3 months postpartum. And things just didn't quite feel right. So I was recommended to go see Maria Radlich, my now business partner for pelvic floor physiotherapy. And we just jived and saw this gap and need for pelvic health education, for pre and postnatal fitness education on what's safe for pregnancy, for postpartum, etc. And so we started actually creating. I became a pre and postnatal fitness specialist. I got all my certifications, and we started creating online programs for women to do through their pregnancy and postpartum. And then fast forward, and that was 2019, like right before COVID happened. Fast forward a year and a half, then the clinic opened, a clinic opportunity became available. And Maria and myself and Kat Wood, who was our third partner, who went to school, physio school with Maria, we joined forces to open up our Bedford clinic. And then a year later, our Bears Lake clinic. So
Fantastic. So,
yeah, and so I run, Maria and Kat are pelvic floor physios and orthopedic physios, and I run our pre and postnatal fitness. So I'm a core specialist, pre and post natal fitness specialist, and yeah, I help you with all your strength training needs.
that's amazing, and it sounds like you really found a niche right off the bat to work in, and that's tremendous. It's a huge struggle sometimes for people to figure out where their business fits in the marketplace. So, I applaud the three of you for doing that. So
Thank
now
you.
that you've started a business, what's one of the major misconceptions that you've come across about operating a business, and what do you do to combat those?
I think like a lot of people think running a business is like, I, I think people say it's hard, but then think it's easier than it is. People get into it thinking, okay, I'm going to be my own boss, and I'm going to, have all this extra time because I have my own business and I don't have to listen to anyone else. And there's this glorified idea of business owners, when in fact it's like generally more work and more to like less time, at least up front. I mean, we're in the first 2 years of operating a business, so we are in that like full on mode, and
Mhm.
ideally one day it'll teeter out a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I don't take as much vacation as I did when I didn't work for myself. So I think there's like this misconception. Yeah, there's just a glorified idea of business owners, because there's a lot more to it in the background, right? There's the HR side of it, there's the operations, there's the financials, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, that people don't see you working on in the background, because usually that's, at nighttime, on weekends, on your own time, when we're a service-based industry. So we are with clients as owners. Currently, we're with clients all day. So that's what people see, but they don't see the extras that actually keep the business running or progressing.
Absolutely, yeah. Those it's true for everybody, no matter what your business is. When you're in it, you're in it. And the struggle is to get on it instead of in it is what a lot of people are trying to work towards, so that they can have those, they can turn the misconceptions into true conceptions because you are out doing whatever
Right.
you want because you've put in the work and it's paying off in the long run.
Totally.
Um, so what would you say have been your biggest learnings as an employer since you began in business?
My biggest learnings, I would say I would say one, to lean on resources, like the available resources more. That's something that as like a woman-owned business and in Nova Scotia, we didn't really realize how many resources there were out there for us. And even still, we have not fully taken advantage of maybe grants or funds or that sort of thing, because when you're running a business, you're like, oh, this is extra time. I don't have the time to do this. When that's like, if it's going to save you thousands of dollars, like you should take the time to write those write those applications. So that would definitely be one. Also, like not only leaning on external resources, but internal resources. So, like what your family, your friends, like make sure you have that support group to help you, because you're going to need it, especially, I have kids, and so I need some help with the kids sometimes, whether it's my spouse or my parents. The grandparents have been called in a lot. And just hiring the right people is a big one as well. That a big learning we have is, yeah, I mean, I heard the term hire slow, fire fast. And that
Absolutely, yeah.
resonates, right? Like that resonates with us. And we learned that pretty quickly in our first year. Yeah, that you just want the right people in place, because again, being a service-based industry, when we're in front of people all day, like you can't teach personality and professionalism, like those, the soft skills are everything. So right people is a big one.
So now that you're talking about hiring the right people, how do you go about finding those right people? Like what qualities are you looking for now versus what you looked for? And how do you foster that positive work environment for everybody?
Um, Hiring the right people, like it comes down to personality for us. I mean, most people have the technical, ability. Like if we're looking for a physiotherapist, for example, like they have the schooling for it. They have maybe some of the experience, but like we're looking for, yeah, like personality and creating the culture, because people aren't going to necessarily come back to you if they'll come back to you if you created a good experience and environment for them. They felt comfortable with you. And
Mhm.
especially being in healthcare, a lot of people share intimate details with us as practitioners. So they need to also trust, our people too, to come back. So, yeah, so we definitely look for like that personality and that professionalism, because we can teach the rest of it. Some things you can teach, some things um you can't. So, and we try to create like foster a good culture too with our staff, having, we'll do meetups quarterly outside of the office, outside of the clinic. Even our very first year, our first staff party was at Maria, our other owner's backyard, and we rented a bouncy castle. And the amount of when we're posting it on our Instagram and our socials, and the amount of our clients like messaging us and laughing about how kind of ironic it was that as a pelvic floor niche clinic, we're all jumping on a bouncy castle. The ultimate pelvic floor test was hilarious. So we're a lot of our staff are, previous athletes. Not that that's a requirement, but it's just, it got pretty competitive on that bouncy castle, let's say.
I could see someone looking over and be like, you think that's high? Watch how high I can jump. Which makes it
Well, and
interesting for sure.
there was only a few staff at that time who had kids. So for us, it was the ultimate pelvic floor test.
That's that's hilarious and something that I'll never fully understand as a man, and that's okay. I know where my lane is, and we can stick with it.
Hey, but you know what?
Uh,
But you do have a pelvic floor. So we treat men on their pelvic floor, maybe not from birth, but like, for example, there are, if you think of an arborist, that's a profession. They climb trees for a living, and they have their legs wrapped around a tree and like all day, and their pelvic floor is tilted back. That can cause pelvic floor issues. And so men are not relieved from pelvic floor pain.
no, I guess, and I stand corrected, and I thank you for that. That's awesome. So what would you say, what do you attribute your growth to? I mean, it sounds like you guys are rocketing in the first couple of years. So what do you think is one of the things that makes that happen for you?
I think it's the right people and the right the right time too. I think timing plays a big part in a lot of successes or failures. And, right now, the healthcare system is at it's overflowed. People are desperate for private healthcare. And we can provide that to them on a timely basis. Um, and the sort of care that they deserve, right? Like no one like no longer are pregnant or postpartum or menopausal women needing to suffer in silence or suffer. Like, I think a lot of times in the past that was just like, oh, that's part of being a woman. You have these pains, or you pee your pants after having a child, or oh, you get hot flashes during menopause. But like, in fact, yes, that might be common, but it is not normal. So I think like timing has played a big part, where women are starting, and men are starting to realize, like, I need to be an advocate for myself, and they're coming to see us for that, and in particular pelvic health, because that's become kind of the buzz kind of thing of the last 5 years, but it is here to stay. Like, I think women and men now know, like, if I'm having pain, I do need to get it dealt with at a timely manner, and that's where we come into play.
Absolutely. The ability for people to talk about aches and pains mentally and physically that's come out in the last few years is tremendous. And it's a really good place to be. So thanks for shining some light on that.
For
So
sure.
thinking back, I mean, you're only a couple of years in, but if you were to start all over again from square one, what do you think you'd do differently the next time around?
I know. I'm like still figuring out what I do differently, because it is new. Um, yeah, I mean, and I might have mentioned this before, but leaning on more resources available to us, and more like free resources that are available to us in Nova Scotia. Because we were just kind of like, all right, full steam ahead, like trying to just hard work our way through building a business, when there could have been more either people or services that we could have leaned on a little bit more. um, and even like finding some mentors. I think having a mentor is very valuable, whether it's like directly in your industry or not. A life mentor, like, I think that would have been helpful, just to help get through some of those bumps in the road at the beginning. Like, it would have been a little bit easier to handle those. Yeah. Yeah. But I think when you're starting a business, you're just like, all right, full steam ahead. This is what it's supposed to be like, right?
It's
And
supposed to be painful when really it doesn't have to be anymore.
exactly, exactly.
It's hard work, but when you have someone to help you focus on different things, it makes a big impact and a
Yeah.
difference for sure.
And I think having
So,
like, I love having three of us as co-owners, because it's not just all on me, or not just all on Maria, or not just all on
right.
Ken. Um, that's been like, yeah, and it's also, if you're divided on something, at least someone else can break that 50-50 division. One person, like, there's always that, okay, we can come up with a decision pretty quickly here. So yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's tremendous. And then it's like, okay, you can go on vacation because the other two are going to make sure that things still run a little bit,
Yeah.
which is key and essential. So you're into it, you're heavily into it. So how do you try to balance your personal life with the demands of running a multi-location business?
The old balancing act question. I mean, I don't think like every day is not going to be balanced for me. Like,
Hmm.
from day to day, or week to week, or even month to month, it might not be balanced. But if over like months or a year, it feels kind of balanced, I think that's what I'm aiming for. Because some days I'm going to be a better mom. Some days I'm going to be a better business owner. Some days I'm going to be a better trainer. Some days I'm going to be a better friend, sister, whatever. So like, there are some non-negotiables for me to keep my life somewhat balanced, like, especially more than ever now in the last 2 years with having two kids and a business. I'm like, I need to feel good, because if I don't feel good, like, the rest of this isn't working very well, or I'm not
Right.
showing up for my people as I should be. So like, like sleep, like I still want more sleep, and my kids are almost 3 and 5. So they are kind of sleeping through the night now. Cause before that, it's kind of out of your control sleep. But now I'm like, okay, non-negotiable 6.5 hours of sleep at least. Ideally, I'm aiming for 7, and 8 is where I'm like really trying to go, but I'm not there yet. With, like just keeping like fitness. I mean, I train people every day. So I also have to preach what I say, or preach what I put,
Teach
teach
something.
what I preach what I
I think
teach.
we got that one. People get the
So
gist.
yeah, exactly. That's what makes me feel good and strong. So I try and do that 3 or 4 days a week, my strength training. And then like, and eating, like I never really used to pay a lot of attention to like diet, but again, it's like what affects my whole day if I don't eat well. So that's become a little bit more of a priority too. Um, so that's kind of like how I try, and like I mean, this is kind of, I don't know, I think people will understand this too. It's like to balance, like I need some time with my friends, like my girlfriends, girls' weekends, like once in a while. That's what's going to fill my cup too. Like there's nothing better than hanging out with your best friends, and making that a priority once a month or quarterly or whatever it is. So yeah, like I have a very helpful spouse, and very helpful parents. So they really like help me maintain some balance in my life with the business. Because otherwise, like I don't turn off. Like, I'm kind of always like, I love working. So I kind of need people to be like, pull me back a bit sometimes. And those people in my life are better now at knowing like, Shan, just chill out a bit, and I'll either be like, yeah, I need to, or I'm like, no, I'm not going to chill out. This is like the ramp up, right? And I think I'm getting a better idea of like when I'm going to push it and when that end date is versus just pushing it all the time.
That's tremendous to have learned that in such a short amount of time. So
Well, I
hats off
say,
to you.
I mean, I'm learning.
I hope you're diarizing it so that you can, the next 5, 10 years, kick out a book that helps people through that part, which would be really good as well. So last question that you haven't seen, but I love to throw out there.
Ooh.
For anyone who's watching this series at home and thinking about jumping into the world of owning their own business, what's a piece of advice you have for them?
I would say do it. Like if you're passionate enough about it, and like it feels like work some days, but really like it's not that you're not going to feel like you're going to work another day in your life. Maybe I know people say that, but like do it. What do you have to lose? Like everyone's always thinking about the risk, and I'm like definitely very risky where so I always just like, I'm of the mindset things are going to work out. I know myself, like I'm going to make it work out. So if you know yourself that and feel the same way, like do it, because worst case scenario, you have to stop and you go back to working the job you worked, or you do a different job to make ends meet until you find whatever it is you want to do for the rest of your life. So like take the risk. And again, like I did it while I had one kid and another one on the way, and I quit my job and was like, "Okay, Tim," like to my husband, I'm like, "I'm going to figure this out." And he was pretty like, "I don't know," and I had it all in my head. I didn't communicate it very well on like my plan, like looking back, but he eventually just like, he was kind of on board, but I just did it anyway. So, I mean, you make sure, I don't know if that's the right advice to like, to just,
Well, maybe
not,
you communicate about it a little bit more, but I
maybe
think your
communicate
point,
a
your
little
point
bit
rings
better.
true, right?
but,
What
but
works for
like,
you doesn't work for everybody, but it comes down to the same facts. You just got to take the chance and go.
you just got to take the chance. Think of worst case scenario. And if you are okay with that, then like that's better than and also the best case scenario. And the best case scenario is probably better than the worst case scenario. So like do it.
Yeah. What if it works out
What
is
if?
what we have to ask ourselves more.
We're our
But
own worst enemies, right? And there's always
absolutely.
like that other little voice in our head who's telling us like it's all mental game, and they're always telling us we're not good enough or we're whatever, right? But like if we can work on it here too, I think mental health is like a huge part of everything, and I didn't talk about that at all in like the balance, but like it really comes down to that. If you don't have that, like, you don't have anything else. So yeah, yeah, but that would be my advice.
Fantastic,
The
Shannon.
risk outweighs the uh the
The
not
reward outweighs the risk. This has been awesome, Shannon. I thank you so much for your time today. It's been a
doing.
pleasure to have our chat. And everyone watching at home, I look forward to seeing you in our next series.
Love it. Thanks, Barrett.